The first time I noticed the shadow, my daughter was 3 months old. We lived in a small town in eastern Tennessee, the kind of place where crickets sang louder than cars and neighbors still waved from their porches. Our house sat at the edge of a quiet village road, surrounded by tall, imposing trees that blocked the sunset far earlier than it should have. It was a picturesque life, or so it seemed. Every night, just after midnight, the baby monitor on my nightstand would emit a low, persistent hum. At first, I dismissed it. It was probably just interference, I told myself. Old wiring, rural signal issues. I had 100 logical explanations, and I clung to every one of them. It was easier than admitting the truth. It was easier to ignore it, until I saw the shape. It stood near the crib, a silhouette stretched thin and distorted against the nursery wall. It wasn't solid, but it wasn't smoke either. It was something in between, a void in the dim light. It was tall, unnaturally narrow, and bent slightly forward, as if it were peering down at my sleeping daughter. My heart stopped. The moment I bolted from my bed and rushed into the nursery, it vanished. There was no sound, no movement. It was just gone. My husband said I was exhausted. New mothers imagine things, he'd say, trying to soothe me. Lack of sleep does terrible things to the mind. He was right, of course, but he was also wrong. This wasn't my mind playing tricks. The shadow came back the next night, and the next. Always in the same spot, always near the crib, always watching her, and it was always gone by the time I flung open the nursery door, my own breath catching in my throat. The air in the room felt wrong afterward. Heavy, cold, like the lingering echo of a presence that had never learned how to leave. I couldn't stand the thought of her being alone in there with it. So, I started sleeping on the nursery floor, a thin mattress my only comfort. That's when the footsteps began. They were soft, barely audible. A slow, deliberate pacing from one side of the room to the other. Sometimes I felt it standing just behind me, a cold spot on the back of my neck. I never turned around. I learned very quickly that looking directly at it, acknowledging it, only made things worse. The shadow wanted to be seen, but only on its own terms. One night, the baby monitor went silent. The usual hum was gone. No static, no soft breathing, just a dead, suffocating silence. I woke with a scream stuck in my throat and scrambled to my feet, running to the nursery. The room was icy cold, and the crib was empty. There were no signs of a struggle. The windows were locked, the door was closed. My daughter was simply gone, as if she had never existed at all. The shadow stood in the corner that night, darker and more solid than I'd ever seen it. And for the very first time, it spoke. "She is safe," it whispered. Its voice was a horrifying chorus, like many voices layered one on top of the other, some old, some young, all whispering the same chilling words. "But she belongs to me now." I collapsed onto the floor, the world spinning away from me. I begged, I cried, I promised it anything it wanted. That was when it told me the rule. "A life for a life," it said, the words slithering into my mind. "Bring me another child, and I will return yours." I screamed until my throat was raw and bleeding. I told myself it was impossible. This wasn't real. This was a nightmare. Monsters didn't bargain for souls. But the nursery stayed empty. The silence in that room was a physical weight, pressing down on me. Days turned into weeks. The police found no evidence. No forced entry, no ransom note. My neighbors stopped waving. Their whispers followed me everywhere, their eyes filled with a sickening mix of suspicion and pity. At night, I started to hear my daughter crying, faintly at first, then louder. The sounds came from the attic, from inside the walls, sometimes from inside my own head. The shadow never left me. It was a constant presence, following me from room to room, always just at the edge of my vision, always patient. "You are running out of time," it would remind me, its layered voice a constant torment. I tried to leave. I packed our bags in a frantic haze and drove to my sister's house across the county. I thought I could outrun it, but that night, as I lay in her guest room, I saw its silhouette against the window. That's when I finally understood the terrifying truth. It wasn't tied to the house, it was tied to me. The night I finally broke, I found myself walking through the village, moving like a ghost. I was standing outside another home, a small, quiet house, just like mine. A soft light glowed from a nursery window. Inside, I could see a crib, a baby girl, about the same age as my own. I told myself I was saving my child, that this was the only way, that the shadow would never stop, never rest, until its bargain was met. The moment my hand touched the doorknob, the shadow appeared beside me, taller than ever before, its featureless face seeming to smile without a mouth. "She will do," it whispered. I don't remember leaving that house. I don't remember the screams I must have heard later. I only remember waking up back in my own nursery. My daughter was there, back in her crib, breathing softly, sleeping peacefully, like nothing had ever happened. The shadow stood watching from the corner. "You chose well," it said. "We left the village that morning. No goodbyes, no explanation. We just drove. We moved across Tennessee, as far from the mountains and the whispers as we could get. A new house, a new town, new unsuspecting faces. For a while, I let myself believe it was over. A clean slate, a new beginning, until the soft, ambient hum returned through the new baby monitor. Until the faint, familiar footsteps began to echo from the ceiling of our new nursery. Until one night, I saw it again. The shadow, standing near the crib, darker than before, as patient as ever. It turned its head slowly toward me. "She grows," it whispered, its voice a cold dread that settled deep in my bones. "And so does her debt," and that's when I understood the final, horrifying truth. The shadow never really wanted the children. It wanted the mothers. It wanted to see what we were capable of. And once you paid its price, once you made that impossible choice, it never, ever lets you forget what you were willing to become. The nursery light flickered, casting long, dancing figures on the wall, and in the corner, the shadow smiled.